Hey everybody, how's it going? This is a redo of the Dark Eldar Battle Stratagem. And Battle Stratagem is where I do a generalistic, universal kind of overview look at a particular codex in question and how you can defeat it. It's not how you play as this particular codex. I do it as a generalistic thing, that way any codex and any armor list from any codex can take what I'm saying and utilize it without feeling left out or anything. So that's why I leave it like this. This is a redo because the Dark Eldar new codex is obviously out. It's cool. I'm glad to have a new codex with some shiny new toys and a new rule and revitalizing some of their old stuff. And despite all this, with power from pain and everything else, the Dark Eldar army still remains pretty much the same. It's a finesse army. It's got it's in terms of the elements of battle, it's air, straight up. So. That being said, it's not a shooting only force or a shooting heavy force and not an assault heavy force. It's more of a blend. I mean, you can play it pretty much purely shooting, you can pretty much play it almost purely assaulting, but I think its strength comes from the fact that it's maneuverable, it's finesse, it's finesse, and it can meld the two together with its battle element being air. It can meld the two together pretty well to provide good covering fire, good assaulting, and stuff like that. Now, its drawbacks is it's a glass cannon. It does not have good armor saves for the most part. When you have a squad of armor save 5 or 6, you're going to be taking casualties. There's just no way around that once you start taking wounds. And their toughness is 3. Now their strength is also 3, and that's average. That's like average strength and toughness when you think about it. Yes, I know you probably encounter a lot more strength or toughness of 4, but those armies like Space Marines and all that are supposed to be above average, and they're popular. So that's why it seems like 4 is average, but it's really above average. Like the middle average ground. I'm not talking about averaging all the stats together. I'm talking about what an average person would have in the 41st millennium would be like a strength and toughness of 3. Anyway, so that being said, they have high initiative, and the HQs in particular high weapon skill and ballistic skill. So there are a few exceptions in terms of the initiative. But for the most part, high initiative, and for the HQ, for the most part, high weapon skill and ballistic skill. So they got that speed and maneuverability for movement purposes, and they got speed in the close combat. They kind of make up for the lack of strength with poison weapons, and both in shooting and the assault. Their shooting poison weapons have no strength value, so they can't hurt vehicles at all. And if you think about it, the basic splinter rifle, which is the Dark Eldar warrior's weapon, wounds on force because it's poisoned. Now, that being said, that only really comes into play against higher toughness things, toughness 5 and higher. And unless you're playing a monstrous creature heavy Tyranid list, or a Tyranid list with some monstrous creatures in it in general, or unless you're playing against Plague Marines or Nurgle themed Chaos list, you're not really going to be encountering toughness 5 or 6 that often. I know Necrons have some toughness 5 as well, but for the most part, you're going to be encountering probably toughness 4 or 3. Now, the Nurgle heavy lists are popular, and Tyranids will be having monstrous creatures in pretty much any incarnation of their list, but overall, their poison range weapon doesn't give them that big of an edge. In fact, against toughness 3, it's kind of a weakness because it has to wound on 4s. And if you think about it, a bolter, which is a basic weapon with a strength of 4, wounds toughness 3 on 3s. So you have to kind of weigh it out like that. But anyway, how would you defeat this particular army? Well, it's going to be a little tough, especially against an opponent who knows what he's doing, but that's the case with any army. All of their vehicles are skimmers and pretty much fast. And anything that's like a bike is a jet bike. So, with that being said, they can maneuver over terrain instead of going through it. They can maneuver over your battle line instead of being penned in by it. So with that in mind, you have two options. You can either bring brute force to the table, or, which can be done in two ways, or you can try and out-finesse them, which can be done in kind of two ways. We'll talk about the brute force first. The obvious way to brute force them is with horde armies, for example, or assaulting heavy armies, just throwing the entire army against the Dark Eldar. Now, the problem with this is they can kind of string you around, like just lead you where they want you with that, because you're trying to get the grips with them, and they can be pretty elusive. So you have to not let yourself be tricked into being led around by the Dark Eldar army. So in order to do that, you have to have some speed to get there. Your vehicles will probably be targeted by the Dark Lances, which can be everywhere, so you have to be careful with that. But one thing you have to keep in mind is you don't want to approach with a thin, long line, which is sometimes what armies do. Because once you get pretty close, they can just turbo boost over you with their skimmers and their jet bikes. And get to the other side of the table. So while you think you're penning them into a corner, they're really just putting you in the corner for the most part, and they're gonna pretty much trade places with you, so to speak. And that's kind of, not what you want to happen. So I would suggest, instead of making a long thin line, making a wedge, something that you don't spread yourself out too thin, something that they can't really jump over safely, and something that if they try to go through the obvious openings, you can catch them still. So it'll take some finesse of your own in that respect, but once you figure out how to close in on Dark Eldar with a certain formation or something that keeps them from really having an easy out, you have a little bit of a better chance. You may also, instead of wanting to encapsulate their entire army, force them to split, like pick off something, a straggler, anything like that, and then go from there. You can also do it with raw firepower in terms of shooting, long range shooting. So weapons that are, or armies with particularly long range weapons, will have an advantage here, and just shoot at them. The shooting phase, I say, is a bit of an equalizer. Armies that may not be good in the assault phase due to having low strength or not a good weapon skill or whatever, can do fine in the shooting phase, because weapons, they go by the weapon strength as long as they hit with their ballistic skill and all that. So that being said, once you start reaching out and touching them at ranged weaponry, the opponent has a couple of options. They can either stand there and take it, or move up through the firestorm to bring their weapons to bear, or they can use terrain, get into cover to take a cover save and maybe do something, or try and use terrain to put the terrain between you and them, blocking line of sight for both of you, but maneuvering unmolested that way. If you keep this in mind, you can kind of try and use this to corral the Dark Eldar somewhere. They have their speed and all that, but really, if they just advance really fast into a meat grinder, it's not going to work well for them. So you can kind of force them off a particular flank, or force that flank to kind of be pinned down, or not literally pinned with the rule, but pinned down a little bit. That can help. Now remember, these are just, of course, theories that can work. It's another thing to actually apply them. So just because this can work doesn't mean it's going to automatically work. You're going to have to work for it. So I just want to put that out there. But remember, the Dark Eldar are essentially glass cannons. They're fragile. They have their strengths and weaknesses just like any other army, and one of the weaknesses happens to be that they're pretty fragile and unforgiving. If you make a mistake, if you're a Dark Eldar player and you make a mistake, you're going to pay the consequences by taking wounds and losing units and everything like that. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to force a mistake. You're pretty much trying to force a mistake, or making their finesse a moot point. So that's how you can do it with brute strength. Now, you can also counter their finesse with finesse of your own. Now, it doesn't have to be an entire army of finesse, and chances are, unless you're Dark Eldar, you're not going to be able to really out-finesse the Dark Eldar in terms of ability. But you gotta cause a disruption, and that's what finesse is good at doing. In armies that aren't pure finesse, it's good at causing a disruption in the battle line. Now, scout moving and infiltrating on deployment can do it. That's one way of doing it. It's not as shocking, really, but it can help. But really, I would say the second way and the better way to do it is with outflanking or deep striking. So Chaos Demons really have no choice to kind of try and do it this way because they deep strike in. They can kind of combine that with raw power once they get there. But outflanking is a little random. You have to come in on a table edge you roll for. But even if you come in on the wrong table edge, that can help you get into position. Because once you start being able to shoot them no matter where they go, then they're going to pretty much have to decide where they're going to focus some of their attention to try and get rid of it. Because being a glass cannon, once you start shooting them wherever they go, they're going to start taking casualties wherever they go. Or at least taking wounds and probably failing saves unless they're in cover or or turbo boosted or something. But yeah, as I was saying, outflanking can help and deep striking can help too. Deep striking is more of a shock tactic. They're going to know you're doing it, but they're not going to know where you want to do it. You may do it right in the middle of the battle line, which they may have expected, but they didn't actually expect you to do, which can help you. Or you may do it towards off a flank that's sparsely populated, which, you know, they may wonder why. That may be because you got a good firing solution from there. Who knows? But outflanking and deep strike can take away some of like an air element, or army. So the elements of battle air can take away kind of an air army's ability a little bit. Not because they can't do it, just because even if they do use their maneuverability, they're not getting out of harm's way. They're probably going to be significantly more out of harm's way, which is nice, but they're not getting out of harm's way. So, utilize, I would say, deep striking and outflanking, especially if you have a way to do it on target for deep striking, or if you have a safe way of deep striking, like a drop pod or something like that, or like a teleport homer. Or rules similar to deep striking or outflanking, I would utilize it. And that's another way you can try and disrupt their finesse, cause them to kind of make a mistake, pen them in a bit. It's going to be difficult. They are very maneuverable with their speed and their jet bike / skimmer potential. Now, with that being said, there's not much else to say really on this. I know some of the War Gear will help benefit them, and Power from Pain can help benefit them. But really, Power from Pain, they gotta destroy an entire unit, so if you're able to get out of there, you may be able to deny them Power from Pain that way. And other than that, there's not too much more to say about the Dark Eldar, really. Everything about them is screwy and fragile. Toughness 3 for the most part, and there may be a unit or two out there that aren't. Their vehicle armor is really low, so a lot of things can hurt their vehicles, like autocannons will be fine against them, for example, or equivalent type of strength 7 weaponry. Even strength 6 can do decently well against them, provided they hurt the vehicle or hit the vehicle. So you have to keep that in mind. Just don't let the Dark Eldar player is going to try and set the tempo of battle with their finesse. And once an opponent manages to really set the tempo of battle, they have the advantage because you're acting kind of how they want you to act and reacting to them. So one thing you got to do is, one of the big battles in some wargaming in general is trying to keep the tempo either neutral or trying to gain advantage of setting the tempo. And the Dark Eldar can do pretty well at setting tempo fairly quickly because of their speed and maneuverability. So if you can try and deny that or disrupt it, that's also again to your advantage. But that's pretty much it. Hope that was of some help. And for those of you celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And until next time, take it easy.